I was prompted through some reading, and I was called to envision my future. And so, in envisioning that, I knew that it included an element of leadership, influence, and impact, also empowering others. And so, that's typically what I think of when I think of leadership. But I have not always enjoyed the idea of leadership. And so I want to talk to you about going from being a self leader to a people leader. It's not always the easiest transition, but it's necessary if you are called to greatness. So thank you for joining me for another Cultivating Courage conversation. I am Jaleesa Dallas, and I help individuals and organizations break barriers to their success, bolster their belief for greater confidence, and build courageous, brave, and bold behaviors to optimize their life, thereby creating belonging internally and externally in community. If you are new here, welcome. If you've been here, hello again. I would love for you to go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and share this with someone you know. I believe that this talk, this conversation, this interaction that we're going to have is going to be so helpful. And of course, I have my handy dandy iPad, so that way I can share with you the notes that I have and going from being a self leader to a people leader. And I have a long list. It's about 14 things that just kind of came out of me, and though I'm going to cover the surface level of these 14 things, I'm actually going to create this into a series because I think it's going to be that much more impactful. And I invite you to share some of the things that you've learned in your transition of building self-leadership in order to be a better people leader. I believe that emotional intelligence is the bridge from being a self-leader to a people leader. It requires us to own who we are, to operate in authority, and optimize our lives. Essentially, that's us doing the soul work, which includes contemplating our readiness, disrupting self-sabotaging behavior, becoming more than what we do, creating sustainability in our mindset, and shifting into a lifestyle that's going to help us to lead well and creating a standard that's going to benefit our forward movement. So I want to talk about that today as I go through these 14 different items. And so again, I'm going to be looking at my notes, so bear with me. But one of those things is for me when I'm thinking about navigating into leadership, because in my corporate role, I am managing. Though I have some aspect of leading, which are two different things, I'm managing programs, processes, procedures, information, resources, but I'm leading students and alumni. I am more so operating in the management space in that aspect versus the leadership space. Now, in times past and in positions past, I have led staff, volunteers, students into the execution of various programs and different things I've done in the corporate space. But one thing that I have identified as I continue to build out my leadership capacity is the importance of making a promise to yourself. That is the self-led piece. Making a promise to yourself before you even commit to others. Because what I have found, which is very frustrating, when we don't make a promise to ourselves, yet we skip that and commit accountability to others, we can eventually get frustrated and agitated with the reminder that people present us when we ask them to keep us accountable to something without making a promise to ourselves to actually do that work. And so again, this is just surface level, but that's just one thing that I can think of when we are transitioning from being a self-leader. Not that we totally don't exist as a self-leader, but when we merge into that place of being a people leader. The second thing is I found a resistance to leadership because I felt like I was an imposter. I wasn't really believing, nor was I behaving in a way that really connected me into someone being a leader. And sometimes we actually are doing the work of leadership, but because we don't think we are enough or that we don't qualify, we are resistant because we don't want to set ourselves up for failure. Number 3, the responsibility of leadership. When you are a leader, you take responsibility for a lot. And I wasn't ready for that. I did not want that. I had enough on my plate and being responsible for myself. So I didn't want the added baggage of being responsible for someone else. Number 4, wholeness. And granted, wholeness is a journey, but it goes from belief several steps in between into confidence. And what I realize is that when you are a self-leader, or not effective, rather, as a self-leader, you can leave residue on the people that you are intending to lead. So if you are struggling heavily in an area of your life that you have not gotten resolve in, you could potentially leave that residue on someone else for which you're leading, which is why wholeness and or working out your wholeness, in scripture, it talks about working out your soul salvation. That is necessary when you are transitioning or moving into being a people leader. Number 5 is only being just about 5 steps ahead of the next person. I always thought I needed to have a complete journey, a fulfilled process, like everything had to be executed and had to be done in order for me to be an effective leader. When in actuality, I just need to be a couple steps, no more than 5 steps ahead of the person that I'm leading. Because if I find myself too far away from their lived experience, then there's no resonation. They won't resonate with what I'm sharing with them, how I'm trying to work with them. Whereas then if I'm too close to their lived experience, they won't respect the information that I'm giving. They won't respect the insight that I'm sharing with them. Number 6 is, at the end of the day, keeping it simple. We're not gonna know everything. And if I may be honest, I have lived and aspired to be a know-it-all. I wanted to have an answer for everything. Though I believe we should have an answer to everything, but sometimes that answer is, I don't know, let me get back to you. And wanting to be a leader, sometimes you think you have to know it all. Number 7 in this idea of going from self-leader to people leader and just kind of that balancing act is realizing that it's no longer about you. When you are leading yourself, you are very self-focused. I hesitate to say self-centered because it doesn't mean you're conceited and self-absorbed, but you are very introspective and you're kind of thinking about what you're thinking about a lot and you're getting a better understanding of who you are. But when you become a people leader, the focus shifts to, what do the people need? How can we support the people? And not that we're neglecting ourselves, but we have to put ourselves kind of at bay for a little while as we build other people up. Again, not giving from our cup, but giving from our overflow. It's recognizing that leadership is not about self. It never has been about self. And so until you get from that self leader to people leader, that transition is going to require you to think about people more or have a others focus so that you can lead well. The 8th thing I believe that we are on is the fear of rejection. The people that you lead are not always going to agree with you. That was my challenge, issue, frustration, and then how to have those conversations, how to do conflict well, communicating effectively, giving and receiving feedback as a leader and being receptive to that feedback and not looking at it as a character dig, and having that much more self-regulation, which actually is the next thing. The 9th thing is self-regulation, realizing that you can only control yourself. Now, this is something that you can manage as a self-leader, but it's that much more necessary and impactful as a people leader to have self-control, to be able to manage yourself well, meaning you know your intentions, what you're focused on, minimizing distraction. That's also being a good steward of your time, your resources, your effort. Also, that is taking ownership. I mentioned a little bit earlier about the responsibility of leadership. When you are a leader in whatever capacity, especially if you have your own business, you are responsible for everyone that is underneath you. And by underneath you, I mean people who are working for you. You're responsible for them. So if they mess up an order, if they miscommunicate information to a client, that is your responsibility to make sure that that is corrected, and communicating to your employee, but also communicating to the customer to let them know that you are rectifying the situation, because there was at some point miscommunication as to why that ended up happening. Poor training of that employee, or again, a misunderstanding of the flow and operation of how things go at your organization and or at your business. And when it comes to self-management, I have a question I want to read because I want to read it verbatim. Does your present conduct and behavior line up with the future of you as a leader? Does it line up with what you see yourself doing as a leader? And if presently it does not, that means some things has to change. That means you need to start putting into practice some of those things that you aspire to be even now. And that's that part of self-leadership that is so necessary. Again, in saying all of this, none of this means that you have to be perfect. You just have to be very present in what it means to be a self-leader and how that is transferred into a people leader. I want to say this is number 10 or 11. Sorry, miscount. I don't have these bulleted, but number 10, knowing your gifts and talents. It is going to be a great benefit for you to know your gifts and talents as it relates to who you are as an individual and how to shift that as a people leader. Because as a people leader, the benefit of that is you being able to delegate some of the things that you're not good at to others who are. And when you know your gifts and talents, you can be able to identify in other people what theirs may be, or to ask them the right questions to help them to navigate what those are for them. Knowing your gifts and talents make you that much more discerning of others, but then how you can effectively attribute without trying to do all the things all the time and it not being effective. Okay, I'm gonna stop counting because I feel like I've lost my count. When you don't effectively do life well as a self-leader, at least again, this is all from my lived experience and what I have found out. When you don't do that well, you tend to do too much when it comes to being a people leader. So if your team too much as a self-leader, you like to have your hands in everything, you like to have a lot of control, you like to call all the shots and do all the things. I understand that, especially if you are operating a business and you are a solopreneur, you kind of have to do all the things. But when you shift to being a people leader, whether that's a contract employee or full-time, part-time employee, you need to not do so much so that you can actually be the visionary and you can be the person that's giving the game plan to the people who are working for you. Because when you do too much, what else are they doing? What are these people who are supposed to be supporting you as a team? What are they doing? Nothing, because you are doing too much. And when you do too much and you have the help so that you can do less or so that you can lead better, you end up getting in burnout because you think you can do it all, but you cannot. Nobody can do it all. I don't care what capacity you work in, if you're in corporate, if you have a business, if you are a stay-at-home mom, you cannot do everything. And it's not intended for you to be able to do everything, because guess what? If you were able to do everything, you wouldn't need people. And we need each other. We need each other to survive. Then we have being ready to lead. Going back to control, I talk about being ready for change, and some of those aspects are releasing the old, meaning the other people's opinions, releasing the past, again, releasing control. Are we even ready to actually lead? And so once I get to that segment, I will break down my ready framework so that you can see if you are ready, if you are even prepared to lead. Now, granted, some of that preparation happens by way of experience, education, evidence of your success in a different area, and you being able to know whether or not you're ready really is helpful as you navigate this. I believe, especially more so in this season, that readiness that I've been desiring, that I've just kind of ran away from, is very present now. And so I'm just open to whatever it is next that I need to be exposed to, and believe, because that's another part of readiness, is believing that I am actually ready, that I am mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually ready for the next thing. And again, for me, that actually looked like me getting my health and wellness together. I've been being more active and consuming better foods, and that also was a contributing factor to me having this feeling of readiness, like, oh my gosh, I've acquired a level of discipline that I hadn't had before, and now I'm ready for the next thing. And then the last thing is virtue. Are you trustworthy? Are you integral? And I didn't intend on this to be the last one because I wanted to, poke at you a little bit. And this is me poking at myself, but I have dealt or had some challenges with trust, and I had wondered where, why, how, what, when it was rooted in. And I had to backtrack and say, well, shoot, do I even trust myself? Like, if I don't even trust myself to get this task or assignment done, how can I, who cannot even trust myself, expect someone else to be able to do the work for me? If I don't even trust myself, then I'm not effectively communicating what needs to get done. So thinking about your virtue when it comes to self-leadership, to being a people leader, trusting yourself to get things done, trusting yourself to be your best advocate, trusting yourself to have your beliefs align with your behavior, and then that integrity that comes along with it. So I know that was a lot. This video was a lot longer than I intended for it to be, but I wanted to give you an overview of what I'm going to be covering over the next couple of weeks. And as I mentioned before, I would love for you to tell me which one of these resonates with you. If it's multiple, let me know in the comments. And then if you feel like something is missing from this conversation on transitioning or balancing what it means to be a self-leader into being a people leader, please do let me know in the comments, because I would love to explore that and potentially extend this series, because I greatly appreciate your input, your contributions, your feedback along this journey here on YouTube. And so I would love for you to go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, share this with someone you know. And then until next time, let your soul work be your best work to a better you. Have a great one.